Hi, I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor, and welcome back to the Smart Performance Podcast. S stands for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive learning, R for rhythmic operation, T for building a thriving community, and P for performance. I'm really happy today that I have a different type of a guest on for the podcast, but very relevant for every single leader out there. Often, especially in healthcare, but really all industry leaders, we're always concerned about where is our next dollar coming from? How can we generate revenue at a profit? The thing is that our cost side of the equation sometimes is equally important, and especially when it comes down to healthcare cost, because it's often like 30% of the total cost. And it's something that we need to keep a very close eye on. And often, we throw our hands up, not sure where to go with this. Again, let's have the conversation today. Donovan, thank you very much for being here today. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Dutch, thanks for having me. Donovan Pyle. I am the CEO and founder of Health Compass Consulting based in Orlando, Florida. We're a management consulting firm that specializes in fixing healthcare supply chains for businesses. We work in the US. Our focus is on mid-sized businesses, and then we work globally with international governments, helping them pave their commercial roadway so that value-based methodologies can actually survive and get adopted by the market. Beyond that, I'm a senior advisor at the Validation Institute in Boston, and I'm the author of a book that came out just a couple months ago called Fixing Healthcare: How Executives Can Save Their People, Their Business, and the Economy. Great to be with you.
Thank you very much for highlighting that. And you'll have an opportunity to back it to tell us a little bit more where we can actually find that. But let's talk about cost. Give us a little bit of a background and perspective of why healthcare is costly, why is it almost unmanageable, and why should we be concerned about this?
Sure, 100%. So just to level set for your audience, last year in 2024, US businesses and patients spent about $1.3 trillion on healthcare. And here's the thing that most executive teams don't know. 25% of what they spent, that's $4,000 per employee, was completely wasted. All right. And so that is the opportunity. It's a $300 billion a year opportunity that is hiding in plain sight. And so really, the reason I wrote that book is to educate leaders on the fact that they actually can reclaim that lost profit, but only if they have unbiased advice and the proper roadmap on how to do it.
Yeah, so it's so interesting that people get so caught up in making money and they often don't look at the back end and say, listen, how can we save money? And again, six pillars of my performance strategy is about safety, quality, growth, cost, transformation, and of course, continuous improvement. So what is the first step somebody should need to take in order to come to the realization that, I'm spending a lot of money, but where's that money going?
Sure. So, actually, I've kind of changed my roadmap slightly just in the past year. But the first step I would say right now is actually governance, right? So many companies don't have a clear process for making decisions about what's become their second or third largest expense and also the fastest growing financial risk on most corporate P&Ls, which is healthcare. And if you don't have a process for making decisions, you don't know who has a voice, who has a vote, then you're probably going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So I would say the first step is governance. Create that fiduciary committee for your health and welfare programs, just like you have on the 401k side. I was actually just quoted in a Bloomberg Law article earlier this month on a wave of fiduciary lawsuits that were aimed at large U.S. employers and large brokerage firms for breach of fiduciary standards. And so this whole notion of fiduciary responsibility is really going to become front and center in the next couple of years. And actually, this is a beautiful thing. This is not just an exercise in compliance. This is the government saying, not only do you have the responsibility to demand accountability and transparency from your vendors, you have to do it. You have to demand accountability and transparency from your vendors. And as we all know, sunshine is the best disinfectant.
Well, it certainly is, and that's something that people need to take to heart. I think that in healthcare specifically, and that's really the audience of what you talk about, and I don't care if you're a small business owner or you're a healthcare administrator, it comes down, that cost is the same. And sometimes in healthcare, it's even more because they love to overpay for things. Is that make it a point to get to see the cost and not just accept what we are paying. And that is really about P&L management. I still see way too often that people are not aware of what the cost, what the costs are, and putting a price tag on it often brings that sunlight you're talking about. So tell me a bit more about your roadmap.
Yeah, so the second step is to get unbiased advice. This is such a big opportunity. I actually dedicated a whole chapter in my book to the history of this industry, because if you understand the history at just a basic level, then you really understand what the role, responsibilities, and the financial incentives are from these different vendors. Dutch, most people don't realize, but you know, health insurance plans were not created by the government in the 1930s, and they certainly weren't created by patients. They were created by hospitals. Hospitals put up the seed money to create health plans to stabilize their revenues during the Great Depression. And that prepaid reoccurring revenue model turned out to be highly successful. And so hospital executives from around the country put up the seed money to create health plans in the 1930s. And so, in effect, health insurers are wholesalers of hospital services. These guys are partners. You see in the media every 24 months this fight that supposedly takes place where it's like hospitals sit on this side of the table and insurance companies sit on this side of the table, and they fight about contract rates every couple of years. That's all smoke and mirrors. They are partners in the employer-sponsored marketplace, which, by the way, covers half of Americans. They are partners. They both benefit from rising unit costs. Okay, so one of the big mistakes that so many employers make is that they rely on supply side vendors for financial advice, right? So just to complete the circle here, health insurers are wholesalers. Benefits brokers are the retailers. That is their job, is to move product. It's not, their value proposition has never been to give you financial advice on how to maximize your healthcare investments for your organization. Brokers, insurance companies, and hospitals all benefit from rising healthcare prices. Okay, so relying on legacy brokerage firms, by the way, these are the ones that were named in these lawsuits last month, to maximize your investment does not work. It's financial suicide. You have to get unbiased advice. And that's the key to unlocking all of this.
So question on that, so where does the fiduciary relationship lie? Because obviously there seems to be a mismatch there.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of employers, there is a lot of confusion around this. A lot of employers think that it's the carrier that is the fiduciary. No, no. At the end of the day, it is always the executive. It's the employer, and specifically those who have discretion over the plans, meaning those who have decision-making authority or influence over how these dollars are being invested. Those are the fiduciaries. Okay, so you can't just delegate this to someone. They are always the capital F fiduciary.
And so finding a non-biased person, somebody not in the pocket of any of these three potential beneficiaries, how difficult is that? Or is that something that you have created as a little niche in the market?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is such a big challenge that I partnered with the Validation Institute in Boston to create what we're calling a fiduciary validation for benefits firms. And so what the Validation Institute does is for benefits firms who think they serve, say that they serve employers as a fiduciary, right? They are legally obligated to serve the employer in their best interests. What the Validation Institute does is scrub their contracts, the contract that they're using with employers, and say, okay, this passes, you are serving in this capacity, or you do not. And by the way, a lot of employers don't even have a contract with their broker, and there's a reason for that. You know what it is?
No.
The broker doesn't work for them. That's why they don't have a contract. The broker works for the carriers. That's what their job is, to move product, not provide the advisory services that help businesses maximize their investment.
So the person that is fortunate enough and smart enough to listen to this podcast, and already starting to scratch the head and say, how does this impact my organization? Because I know for healthcare, listen, our margins are thin, and any profit that we can protect and not spend unnecessarily is another dollar in the pocket that could be spent on capital or maybe paying me more money. So what is one person that is listening to? What can they do? What should they do?
Yeah, and like I said, full disclosure, I am an advisor at the Validation Institute, but I would recommend going to the VI's website and looking at all the firms that have been validated and set up conversations with them. Talk to them, because what you're going to understand very quickly is that there are actually, despite what most people believe, there are actually almost infinite ways to build health plans. People don't realize this. People think, oh, there's only 4 carriers and you either fully insure or you self-fund. That is nonsense. The marketplace of strategies and solutions is huge. It's vast. It's dynamic. And since every organization has different needs, like, a manufacturer in Ohio is going to have different needs. They're going to value different things than a tech company in Austin. And so since every organization values different things and they use benefits in slightly different ways, the only thing that should be uniformly adopted by all businesses across all market segments is a fiduciary process. You need a process to understand where you should be investing in, what you should be investing in, and what you should not be investing in, and how you fund and how you procure and how you manage your healthcare supply chain. It's the process that moves you through what I call the health plan maturity model, so that you're continuously optimizing and maximizing your investment over time.
So take that back to something that is truly tangible, that people can wrap their heads around, because again, the Cotter model, we need to establish a burning platform in order to get people to be excited about how much money are we talking about per person, and how does that tabulate if you have a company of 3,000 to 5,000 people?
Yeah, so yeah, I can just speak from our own experience, at Health Compass. Going back to 2018, our average customer saves about $2,000 per employee per year with better benefits. And that's the first year. That number grows each year as they move through the maturity model. And every organization, the leadership teams, they all have their own tolerance for change management. They all have their different amount of dissatisfaction with the status quo. And so we actually put that on a chart, right? We actually have a framework for understanding the what we call the executive calibration index. And so we can, based on their archetype, so to speak, we can suggest how fast they move through that maturity model. But we're talking about millions and millions of dollars every year. And it's capital that's just hiding in plain sight. It's trapped inside this healthcare budget.
Yeah, and I think that's the sense of urgency, establishing that it could be 5, 10, 15% of your budget that can be saved. And of course, as a good healthcare provider, a doctor, a nurse, administrator, should do is listen, take this conversation to the CFO or the CEO. So listen, we have an opportunity here. Oh, by the way, I can use these dollars to generate more revenue. Because on the end of the day, it is capital, right? You're stealing from yourself by overpaying for a product that is
Yes.
out and available, and because of the complexity. And so I teach at Rutgers University, and I'm actually, we talk about U.S. health systems this week, and just the sheer complexity, people are so lost. And I always find really bad for the people who are, who are elderly, who are consumers of this, who are dependent on this, who have limited, income. They make it so complicated to them
Yes.
that they have no way to navigate it, and they literally throw their hands up in the air and just accept what is done to them. And that's really the difference that we need to make. As a leader, you should never accept. You should find an expert to help you out. You don't need to be the expert, but you do need to find the expert and have that consultation. So what is the next step on your roadmap that you were talking about?
Yeah, so after you secure unbiased advice, and by the way, Dutch, like here's the really fascinating thing is that it usually doesn't even cost anything to upgrade to a fiduciary advisor. Let me explain what I mean by that. When your fiduciary advisor walks you through the procurement process or your renewal process, they will strip out they'll tell the carriers to strip out all the commissions, bonuses, etc. out of the products. Okay, net it all out. And when they replace those commissions and backdoor revenue streams with their transparent fee, usually it doesn't even cost anything to upgrade to a fiduciary advisor who actually works for you, not the machine. So after you get that unbiased advice, the next step is to go into what we call the assessment phase. Okay. And so we want to, at our organization, we do a deep dive on our customer. We score them in the 7 categories of benefits value so we can compare how they're performing against their peers. From there, we can identify opportunities, set goals, and develop roadmaps to achieve them. So that's, and inside of that assessment process, we also have what we call employee benefits voice, where we're surveying the employees. What do the employee? I mean, at the end of the day, these programs are for the employees. They're meant to help you attract and retain talent. That's why we have these programs. And so, what do the employees actually value? And it's amazed what we find, right? I mean, sometimes the things that we don't think are really worth anything, they really value that. And so before businesses go invest $1 million in something, you really want to figure out what's going to resonate with your team. So what we're doing in that assessment phase is building the blueprint. I don't know if you've ever tried to build, assemble an IKEA furniture without a blueprint or the instructions. Well, you end up with a wobbly table, extra screws, and a whole lot of F-bombs being thrown around the room. So this is essentially the state of most employers, is that they're trying to build something without the instructions, and it's really painful. They're tired of swearing.
Listen, I think this information is of high value, and an executive leader is not going to take it beyond where you are. They're going to take it to the right people in finance, the right people in the executive management, and get them on that path and to see how they can make a difference. And they should reach out to you or to a mutual beneficiary or a fiduciary, a middle person that can help in steering in the right direction. Very interesting insight today, Donovan. Where can we find you to get more information?
Sure, you can go to my personal website, which is donovanpyle.com, or you can go to fixinghealthcare.com. And I would recommend, to get the rest of the roadmap, download the free executive summary of my book. It's going to show you step by step what needs to be done. And here's the thing, as you mentioned, Dutch, we're not expecting leaders to become experts in this. They just don't have the bandwidth. Just like I don't want to be an expert in U.S. tax policy, I hire a CPA to protect my blind spots, and I know that CPA is not getting paid by the IRS. Okay, I want business leaders to really apply that same due diligence to their healthcare programs. Take back control and lead the way.
Yeah, and that's exactly what leadership is, right? Is knowing and understanding what you know, but even more importantly, know what you don't know and surround yourself by experts who can lead the way. And of course, that can greatly benefit everybody else. Give me a parting thought.
Parting thoughts. If we keep on doing what we've always done, we're going to get what we've always gotten, which is unsustainable costs and a sicker and sicker employee population, which, as you know, decreases productivity and the value of your organization. All of this is optional. All you have to do is pull a couple levers, make a couple slight changes, and you can change that directory for your organization. And frankly, if you're a small or mid-sized business, you can absolutely gain a strategic advantage against larger organizations who are, in some cases, asleep at the wheel.
I think that's rock solid advice. And again, to everybody who's listening to this, follow up donovanpyle.com, get that free executive summary, take this to your executive leaders and try to get them to wake up and really understand there's an opportunity here to reduce cost, and that cost can be turned into capital opportunities or and drive revenue, and of course provide better care. Thank you very much, Donovan, for coming to the podcast today. And to the audience, go to the Apple Store, download Smart Performance app. Again, it is through meaningful actions that you go deliver new results. No different what Donovan has said. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome because that's not working. Again, it is action where the real results come from. And you got to take new actions from time to time. Thank you, and we'll see you at the next episode again. Donovan, thank you very much for joining, and stay warm in chilly Florida.
My pleasure. Take care now.